The day my parents gave my sister a $4 million estate and left me absolutely nothing, I smiled through my tears and wished them happiness. 3 years later, my father stood outside my front door in the pouring rain, holding a single envelope in his trembling hands, and said 7 words I never thought I'd hear: "I made the biggest mistake of my life." My name is Ava Reynolds. I'm 36 years old, and until that day, I believed that if I loved my family enough, eventually they would love me back the same way. I was wrong. Growing up, my younger sister, Chloe, was the center of my parents' universe. If she earned a C in school, Mom called it creative intelligence. If I brought home straight A's, Dad would simply nod and ask why one of them wasn't an A+. When Chloe forgot their anniversary dinner after she moved out, Mom laughed and said, "She's so busy." When I missed one Sunday lunch because I was recovering from the flu, Dad accused me of forgetting where I came from. Nothing Chloe did was ever wrong. Nothing I did was ever enough. Still, I kept trying. I was the one who drove Mom to doctor's appointments. I was the one who fixed Dad's roof after a storm damaged it. I was the one who brought groceries every week after they retired. Chloe rarely visited. She always had an excuse. I'm traveling. I'm exhausted. I already have plans. Yet somehow, every family dinner ended with Mom praising Chloe while criticizing me. My husband, Daniel, used to squeeze my hand under the table and whisper, "One day you'll stop chasing people who enjoy watching you run." I always answered the same way. "They're still my parents." He'd smile sadly. I know. When I was 33, my grandfather passed away. He had built a successful commercial real estate company decades earlier. Most of his investments had already been distributed while he was alive, but one property remained untouched. A breathtaking lakeside estate that had recently been appraised at just over $4 million. The property had been in our family for nearly 60 years. Grandpa loved that place. So did I. Every summer of my childhood had been spent there. Fishing with Grandpa. Learning to bake with Grandma. Watching fireworks from the dock every 4th of July. To me, it wasn't just expensive land. It was home. A month after Grandpa's funeral, my parents invited everyone to a family dinner. The attorney handling the estate joined us. I assumed we were discussing maintenance costs or future plans. Instead, Dad stood and cleared his throat. "Your grandfather wanted us to decide together what happens to the estate." I smiled. That sounded fair. Then he continued. "Your mother and I have already made the decision." Something inside me tightened. Mom reached across the table and took Chloe's hand. "We're transferring the entire estate into Chloe's name." Silence. I honestly thought I'd misheard. "The entire estate?" Dad nodded. "Yes." I looked around the table. Nobody seemed surprised. Only me. I swallowed hard. "What about me?" Mom sighed dramatically. "Ava. You already have a husband." As if that answered my question. Dad folded his arms. "Chloe needs security." I stared at him. "She owns a luxury condo. She has 2 investment properties. Her husband is a surgeon." Mom looked annoyed. And I don't understand." Dad's voice hardened. "We're not asking for your permission. We're informing you." The attorney quietly shifted in his chair but remained silent. I forced myself to stay calm. "I'm not asking for all of it. I'm asking why I'm receiving nothing." Mom actually looked offended. "You should be happy for your sister." Chloe finally spoke. "I didn't ask for this. But she never once offered to share it." Daniel gently touched my shoulder. "Let's go." I looked at my parents one last time. I spent years believing love couldn't be measured. My voice shook. But today, you measured mine at exactly $0. We left. Nobody followed us. Nobody called that night. Nobody apologized. The next morning, I woke up expecting at least one message from Mom. There wasn't one. Instead, Chloe posted smiling photos from the estate. The caption read, "Feeling blessed to continue the family legacy." My stomach turned. 3 weeks later, the property officially became hers. Then everything changed. My parents practically moved into the estate. Weekend parties. Expensive renovations. Luxury furniture. Wine tastings. Every social media post featured captions about family traditions. Ironically, I was never invited. When I asked Mom why, she answered without hesitation. "It's Chloe's house now. You should respect her privacy." Privacy. In the home where I'd spent every childhood summer. Daniel watched me quietly delete another photo from my phone. "You have to let them go." "I can't." "Why?" "Because if I stop hoping, I'll have to admit they never chose me." He wrapped his arms around me. "They already made that choice." It took months before I finally accepted it. Not overnight. Not dramatically. Just little by little. I stopped calling first. Stopped sending holiday gifts. Stopped trying to earn invitations that never came. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my own life. Daniel and I expanded our small interior design business. We specialized in restoring historic homes instead of building new ones. The work was difficult. The profit wasn't always steady. But every project reminded me that broken things could become beautiful again. Including people. 2 years later, our company landed a contract restoring a century-old courthouse. That single project transformed our reputation. New clients followed. Architects began recommending us. Developers started calling. For the first time in my adult life, success came without my family's approval. Then came another surprise. Daniel and I discovered we were expecting our first child after years of believing it might never happen. When I finally called Mom with the news, there was a long silence. "Oh. I thought you'd be happier." "I am." She didn't sound like it. "When's Chloe due again?" I froze. "Chloe's pregnant?" "You didn't know?" "No. We assumed she'd tell you." She hadn't. Not because she'd forgotten. Because we hadn't spoken in almost a year. That realization hurt more than I expected. Months passed. Our daughter, Lily, was born healthy. She became the center of our world. Oddly enough, my parents visited only once. For 15 minutes. Mom spent most of the visit showing me pictures of Chloe's nursery. Dad barely held Lily before checking his phone. When they left, Daniel quietly locked the front door. "I think that's the last time." He was right. I didn't chase them anymore. Life became peaceful. Then, exactly 3 years after my parents gave Chloe the entire estate, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. "Hello?" A nervous female voice answered. "Is this Ava Reynolds?" "Yes." "My name is Karen. I'm the estate manager at Willow Lake." My heartbeat quickened. The old family estate. "I know you probably don't want to hear from us. But I think there's something you need to know." Every instinct told me to hang up. Instead, I listened. And what she told me next made me realize that the $4 million estate my parents had sacrificed our relationship to protect was hiding a truth none of them had ever seen coming. Karen took a shaky breath before she spoke again. "I've worked at Willow Lake for almost 12 years. Your grandfather trusted me. He used to tell me stories about both you and Chloe." I smiled sadly. "He was a good man." "He was. That's why I don't think he'd be happy with what's happened." My grip tightened around the phone. "What happened?" "There are foreclosure notices being prepared." I sat upright. "What?" "The estate has been used as collateral for several business loans." I felt the blood drain from my face. But Chloe didn't own a business. No. Her husband does. I closed my eyes. Everything suddenly made sense. The expensive renovations. The luxury parties. The constant social media posts. They hadn't been celebrating. They'd been pretending. Karen continued quietly. I shouldn't be telling you this, but your grandfather always said you were the only one who loved that place for what it was, not what it was worth. Tears filled my eyes. Thank you. After I hung up, Daniel found me sitting silently in the kitchen. What happened? I told him everything. He didn't look surprised. I wondered how long they could keep spending like that. So did I. A month later, the news became public. Chloe's husband had made several disastrous commercial investments. Millions of dollars were gone. Creditors were coming after every major asset they owned, including Willow Lake. Mom finally called. Not to apologize. Not to ask about Lily. She wanted money. Ava. We're in a difficult situation. I stayed quiet. Could you loan Chloe $200,000? I almost laughed. You left me nothing. A family shouldn't keep score. I closed my eyes. That's exactly what you told me when you gave her everything. She didn't answer. Then she whispered. Please. I'm sorry. It was the first time in years I'd ever said no to my mother. She hung up. Over the next several months, rumors spread through the family. Some blamed Chloe's husband. Others blamed the economy. Nobody admitted the obvious. Greed had destroyed everything. Then another phone call came. This time from my father. His voice sounded weaker than I remembered. Ava. I've been diagnosed with heart failure. I didn't know what to feel. Pain. Anger. Fear. All at once. I'm sorry. I need to see you. Part of me wanted to refuse. But Daniel gently squeezed my hand. You'll regret it if you don't. The following afternoon I drove to my parents' house. It looked smaller somehow. Older. Dad opened the door himself. He'd aged nearly 10 years in only 3. His shoulders sagged. His hands trembled. For a long moment we simply stared at each other. Then he whispered. I'm sorry. Those words should have healed something inside me. Instead, they only reminded me how many years I'd waited to hear them. He invited me inside. Mom sat quietly in the living room. For the first time in my life. She looked frightened. Dad handed me a folder. Inside were financial statements, loan documents, medical reports, and one handwritten letter. My grandfather's handwriting. Dad nodded. I found it hidden behind a drawer in his desk. I unfolded the yellowed paper. My dear family. If you're reading this after I'm gone, then someone ignored my final instructions. The estate was never supposed to belong to one child. It was meant to remain in the family equally. Not because of money. Because this home represents unity. If anyone uses it to divide you, they've already lost something worth more than the property itself. I felt tears falling onto the paper. Dad couldn't look at me. I never found that letter until recently. Why? I never looked. The silence became unbearable. Finally he spoke again. I thought I knew what your grandfather wanted. You didn't. No. He looked at me with eyes full of regret. I confused favoritism with love. Mom quietly started crying. I did too. Neither of them expected forgiveness. They simply sat there. Broken. Weeks later, the bank officially announced the estate would be sold at auction. The entire extended family planned to attend. Everyone wanted to see what happened. Nobody expected me to be there. The auction hall buzzed with whispers as relatives filled the seats. I walked in holding Daniel's hand. Conversations immediately stopped. Chloe looked exhausted. She'd lost weight. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. When she saw me, she looked away. The auctioneer explained the rules. Bidding began. Investors quickly pushed the price upward. 3 million. 3.3. 3.6. Finally, only 2 bidders remained. A national resort company. And one anonymous bidder participating through a legal representative. The room watched in silence. 3,900,000. The resort raised its paddle. My anonymous bidder offers $4 million. Gasps echoed across the room. The resort hesitated. After several long seconds, they lowered their paddle. Sold. Everyone applauded politely. Then the auctioneer smiled. The buyer has requested that their identity be revealed. My attorney stood. Every head turned toward him. He smiled. The purchaser is. He looked directly at me. Ava Reynolds. The room exploded with shocked voices. Mom covered her mouth. Dad froze. Chloe stood so suddenly her chair fell backward. What? My attorney continued calmly. My client has no intention of selling or developing the property. She intends to preserve it. Just as her grandfather always hoped. I slowly walked to the front. My hand shook. Not because I'd won. Because I was finally standing where I belonged. I looked toward my family. For years. I thought you stole my home. I smiled sadly. But I finally realized something. You never could. The house wasn't the legacy. The love inside it was. And that disappeared long before today. Nobody spoke. Then Dad slowly stood. His voice cracked. I was wrong. He turned toward everyone gathered. My daughter deserved better. I failed her. So did her mother. I gave everything to the child who wanted the property. And nothing to the daughter who loved the people inside it. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even Chloe was crying. She slowly walked toward me. I hated always feeling like I had to stay perfect. She wiped away tears. They spoiled me until I became selfish. I kept accepting everything because I thought I deserved it. I'm sorry. For the first time in years. I believed her. Not because of her words. Because she wasn't asking me for anything. Months later, Willow Lake looked alive again. Daniel and I repaired the old dock. We restored Grandpa's workshop. Children from local schools visited to learn about the property's history. It no longer belonged to one generation. It became something the entire community could appreciate. Dad lived long enough to visit one last time. He sat on the porch overlooking the lake while Lily chased butterflies across the yard. He smiled through tears. This is how your grandfather wanted it. I sat beside him. I know. He reached for my hand. I don't expect you to forgive me. I squeezed it gently. I'm not forgetting what happened. But I'm tired of carrying it. He nodded. That was enough. Dad passed away 6 months later. At his memorial service, people spoke about his career, his generosity, and his accomplishments. When it was my turn, I didn't talk about his mistakes. I talked about the afternoon he found the courage to admit them. Because sometimes the greatest inheritance a parent can leave isn't money or property. It's finally telling the truth. 3 years earlier, my parents had given my sister a $4 million estate and left me with nothing. They thought wealth determined who mattered most. Life proved something very different. The estate was lost. The money disappeared. The status vanished. But the daughter they had overlooked rebuilt the only legacy that was ever truly worth saving. And in the end, that was the one thing no one could ever take away.